What is in your control is time to submit, time to source, time to engage, time to screen. Those are things that are within your control, but ultimately the metrics that are really going to get you there is how quickly can you submit someone, and then how good are you at managing the hiring manager to get that really fast time to hire of a quality candidate.
Philosophical life advice here. Control what you can control. Stress a little bit over some of the things you can't control, and try to, put the odds in your favor with those. But at the end of the day, just understand what is in your control and what's not.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenly, and welcome back to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we've got a great Tactical Tuesday episode ahead of us, but before we get into that, I just want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show here. Some days we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space, while other days we cover things like trending topics. Stop by every Tuesday like today for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. Some days we open up for Q&A, and occasionally you get a mic drop episode from Matt where he shares something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and wants you to know. Now, as a reminder, if you like the content that we share here on the show, make sure that you subscribe for more. All right, today's Tactical Tuesday. It's going to be a gut check. So we all know a new ATS isn't going to drive better results for you. A better sourcing tool probably won't drive better results for you either. And a different email sending tool probably won't drive better results for you as the third one. So why is this? It's because the outcome is dependent upon the strategy, the input, and the execution of your plan as part of your overall workflow, not the tech that's being used. So the best way to start driving better results, honestly, is to have an understanding of what's your current baseline relative to the KPIs, the key performance indicators that you measure yourself on, and what are the inputs into those. And so, to be honest, this doesn't need to be that complicated, and that's why we've got Vivien joining us today to go over about 10 different items that recruiters could be focusing on and our thoughts on those different ones. So Vivien, welcome back.
Thank you. Let's dive into it.
Oh yeah, KPIs, metrics, all of this stuff. Everyone loves to measure, but you know the saying, what gets measured gets managed. And that can be a good thing. That can be a bad thing. It all depends on, are you measuring the right things? Are you focusing on the right things and changing your behaviors on the inputs that are towards the things that are going to drive better ultimate results for you? Or are you trying to optimize for the KPI and not the ideal end result at the end of the day? So you and I have been chatting this week. We've come up with some different thoughts around KPIs that recruiters are either currently using or ones that might be not focused on as much. And it's funny, you and I have been like thinking about what are good ones, what are not so good ones. And I said some that I thought were great, and you're just like, I don't know. I'm like, perfect. Let's talk about that, because that's exactly what other people are thinking as well. And we can talk about why some are good and why some you might want to think twice about. So I'm just going to read down our list of different ones. But before I get into this, do you like any prefacing thoughts from your side?
The big one is, and this is like a recruiter motto, is follow the money. Are these activities actually helping you to reach your end goal, which is to get the placement for the client to pay? Or are these kind of fluffy, fancy looking kind of KPIs that are like nice to know, but they really don't make a difference in helping you get that bag. So that's kind of where all of this is going to center around, and you'll start seeing like a little thread.
Yes. Okay. So these, I'm going to categorize them. We kind of have two buckets. We have time to X, and we're going to follow just the general workflow there in the order of these. They're not ranked in any specific order. And then we have conversion rates. So what's it look like as you go from one stage to the other? So let's start with the time to X ones. So the first one is time to sourcing, how fast you can identify and engage top candidates. How do we feel about this one?
This one is a good one, but mainly to kind of like take a look at it and evaluate to figure out, okay, because like sourcing has been previously, unless you're on Loxo, and this is not just like me being like, oh, Loxo, like, yes, that is very real. But when I was a recruiter, I used to go to LinkedIn Recruiter. I would start the project. I would add all the parameters in there. I would come up with Booleans, with filters. That alone was taking a lot of time up. And then also to then review the profiles to make sure, are these the right ones, or do I need to tweak and adjust my filters? And then you can only add like 25 at a time and all that kind of stuff. And so suddenly I would spend hours after hours after hours of just sourcing. and then reaching out to 25 people at a time. This is incredibly inefficient. And so if it takes you a long time to source, to reach out and get a response back, this is just an indicator of it's a very inefficient process that you have. Whereas in Loxo, we have AI that looks at the job specs and it recommends the right candidates, and you barely have to make any tweaks. Then you just say, yep, I like them all. And then you just have auto add to your sequence, your outreach sequence. You have that attached to that stage where you're adding all the source candidates. They get auto enrolled into that stage. You don't have to then click, select, pick the message that you want to send. And this is really just like what you would do on LinkedIn Recruiter. This is incredibly inefficient. Those admin type tasks a lot of times get outsourced. So like big billers, they will actually have like a coordinator that just does all of this for the main recruiter so that the main recruiter can focus on what actually brings the bag, which is not this part of it. So if it's more than 1 week from sourcing to engaging, something is wrong in your process. And unfortunately, the time to source, that includes like engaging top candidates and getting some kind of like feedback from them. It also includes how are you even emailing them? We have like an episode or two that touches on this subject, So yeah, but time to source is more so of like, am I doing the right things? Am I spending my time wisely? Or am I just trying to make myself valuable by sourcing?
Okay. So overall, thumbs up on time to source and engage, but from the standpoint of know your baseline. If that's taking you a while, you should know that so you can get that down. If you've already got it in a good spot, or like the example you shared, then probably wouldn't metric yourself too much on that one. All right, next one we've heard is so source and engage to time to screen. How do we feel there?
This one's kind of irrelevant because by the time that somebody has said, I am interested, they usually set up a call within 3 business days. If they take longer than that, it's not that urgent, keep it moving. But if bulk of the people that have expressed interest are scheduling within 3 days, great. And it's a good indicator. Otherwise, candidate might not be worth their salt. I mean, take the call. It's always good to take calls like that. Outside of that, just keep it moving.
Okay. Time to submission. So how quickly are you getting your qualified candidates in front of your clients?
Super important. And you can use this for business development purposes as well, because ultimately this solves a pain point for hiring managers. Majority of the time when hiring managers are open to engaging with a recruiter, it is because it's taking their HR team forever to send them any candidates worth their salt. Hiring managers, if you can say, you give me this rec today, you sign this agreement today, I can have initial candidates to you within X amount of days or X amount of weeks. That's very attractive to hiring managers. That solves the first problem that they have, which is it's taking my team forever to even find someone. There is a hidden cost to waiting to find the right candidate. So this is where speed is your friend. If you have that metric, the shorter you can make it without sacrificing quality. Excellent. Great metric to look at.
Love it. Time to feedback. So how quickly are you getting that feedback from your clients?
I don't really personally care about this one, mainly because if you have a good relationship, then they're getting back to you within 24 to 48 hours anyways. If they're taking longer than that, it's not that big of a priority. So this is not something that will help you recruit better. This is more a metric that indicates the health of the relationship that you have with the hiring manager. So if your New Year's resolution is, I want to be the best recruiter ever, this metric doesn't tell you anything.
I like that, how you frame that and how you think about that as a metric in that different way. Smart. Okay. Time to hire. So how quickly are you getting the candidates from submission to hired?
Super important. Another really great one that you can use when you're doing business development outreach, if you have like a really good time to hire, time to fill, then you can lead with that. You can say, listen, it takes me 10 days to get you your first really good candidates. The candidates that I submit, a lot of them actually end up interviewing. So this is good for you. I'm not going to submit junk over to you. And as long as you follow my process and you stay on my schedule, my average time to hire, my time to fill is X. Hiring managers are going to really, really like that.
Okay, perfect. And I just realized I skipped one. Time to interview. we're gonna roll back. I know I said I was going chronological order, but hey, I'm human. I'm not perfect. How do we feel about time to interview?
So this one is a little bit of like in between, like you submitted someone, you're waiting for feedback, and then you're waiting once you receive that feedback to then schedule and set up that interview. if you really want to manage this process and shorten this, you really want to get your metrics down so that you can tell the hiring manager upfront, once you sign this, like weeks 4 through 6, block off your calendar, and everybody that needs to interview this candidate, block everybody's calendar off so that everybody is available to interview candidates during this time. And this will then help. But this is a little bit out of your control because it's hiring managers, it's the candidate's availability. So this is really not that helpful of an indicator because majority of this is completely out of your control. What is in your control is time to submit, time to source, time to engage, time to screen. Those are things that are within your control, but ultimately the metrics that are really going to get you there is how quickly can you submit someone, and then how good are you at managing the hiring manager to get that really fast time to hire of a quality candidate.
Okay. And I like that separation of, I mean, general philosophical life advice here. Control what you can control. Stress a little bit over some of the things you can't control, and try to, put the odds in your favor with those. But at the end of the day, just understand what is in your control and what's not. Okay. So we've talked about the time to bucket. Now let's get into some of the conversion rates. And this one's near and dear to my heart as a data analytics marketing geek over here. So there were 3 that piqued my interest here. So first is going from, okay, I've sourced a candidate, to submitting them over to the hiring organization. So how well can you identify those candidates and convince them to enter the interview process? How do you feel about that one?
I'm a little bit indifferent about that one just because it really depends on how big is the candidate pool that you can even pull from, how competitive is that space, how great is that offer. So there are so many different variables that play into this, where sometimes you really only need to source 100 people and you will have your hire in there. Other times you have to cast your net a little bit wider. So that's really not that good of an indicator. It's more so how quickly, it doesn't matter how many people you have to source, how quickly can you go from sourcing to I'm screening, submitting, and moving them through the process.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the main one.
Okay. So in that one, speed over percentage is probably what's going to work in your favor. Okay.
Yeah.
So next one is, how do we feel about submission to hiring? How many candidates do you need to submit in order to get a hire?
This is a good one because this is going to tell you a little bit about the quality, and I like this one. Keep.
Okay. Now, one follow-on question. Say you recruit in multiple niches, say you have multiple clients. Should you look at this as a blended number? Should you look at it on a per job type or per client basis? How would you think about this? Because I could see you getting caught up if, with one client, it's way off the mark. With another, it's different. If you average that, the average of 2 numbers that are nowhere close to each other, that's not really telling anything. So yeah, just curious, how do you think about that?
I think this one is a really good one to kind of look at what's the median as opposed to the average. So
Okay.
you want to look at the spread. What's the lowest value? What's the highest value? Because the average, it's kind of like if Bill Gates were to join this call right now and somebody was going to look at our average net worth, really good. Not very accurate, but really good.
Yeah.
But if you look more at the median, you're going to see that Bill Gates and his net worth is a big, big outlier to what our net worths are. And that's going to give you a more accurate kind of description. It's really good to kind of see the spread and to see, okay, how big of a difference is my low and my high value, because this is going to then tell you about your consistency and your quality overall, along with client candidate management. Because depending on how wide or narrow this is, if it's narrow, it means you're very consistent. You have a very solid process that is working. If it's very wide, this is where it makes sense to kind of drill down a little bit and be like, okay, the lower value of submission to hire, obviously I'm doing something right. What is happening with these searches and these clients and these hiring managers, and why is it taking forever and a half with these hiring managers? What are the differences there, to kind of look at that so that you can narrow it down so that an average is actually meaningful in this case.
Yeah. And what are you learning from that? What can you apply from what's working well over here to what's not working well over here, and what's not working well over here, so you can make sure that you do not bring that over to this side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then last one, beginning to end, sourcing and engaging through hiring, your conversion rate on that. So how accurate are you at identifying the right candidates and then going on and placing them?
Not really. It kind of goes back to source to submission ratios, and it's because it really doesn't matter how many people you source. What's really going to get the placement done is how many are you submitting, how many are interviewing, and actually then getting the offer and then accept that offer and get hired. So the key ones, the key conversion ones are submission to interviewing to placed, so that you can see, okay, on average or my median, how many do I need to submit to make sure that I get enough interviews, that I get that placement that I really need. Because the reality is, if you have a killer email campaign, you might not need to source that many to submit the minimum that you need to submit to make sure that it's likely going to lead to a placement. And so kind of like the front leading, it really is not that meaningful, because the meaningful stuff is if you find the right people, you submit enough of them, because people want to see some kind of comparison. So it's rare that you submit one candidate and it goes all the way through, mainly because hiring managers, they want to see what does the market actually look like. So you do want to show them some examples that are outside of their requirements, must-haves and nice-to-haves, and then also the ones that actually fit within, so that they know this is what the market looks like. We kind of got to get a move on this candidate that is kind of the best that we're going to do, and remind them there is a hidden cost to you not hiring a person, to you being indecisive. So let's get a move on. And sometimes you can encourage that by showing them people that are outside of the scope, that can be more expensive, but they have all the criteria that they want, or they're within the budget, but they don't have quite the experiences that they want. And you can say, as you're sending these over, you can give them a little bit of a reality check to be like, get a move on, guys. And yeah.
I like it. Okay. You just gave me a brilliant idea. This is news to you. So what you were talking about there of how, you might have a killer email campaign and that's going to increase your submission rate. So for next week, let's do a follow-on episode. We're going to hone in on the KPIs that we think you should focus on. And then, okay, what are the inputs that are going to drive better results for each of those? So stay tuned for what was not planned to be a 2-part series as part 2 of this new 2-part series. But Vivien, as always, truly, truly, truly appreciate you coming and dropping this knowledge with us. But yeah, it's a pleasure as always. So as we wrap, Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. If you love this episode, which I know you did, and you're not sure where to go next, we have a link to a similar one, and you can find that in the show notes in the description of your favorite podcast streaming platform. Have full video episodes available on YouTube as well as on our website. If you have questions, send them to us at podcast@loxo.co. And lastly, if you did enjoy this, please make sure you leave us a quick rating in your podcast streaming platform. It only takes 3 seconds, but it's going to help other recruiters like you to find us. So, all right, everyone. That was yet another great Tactical Tuesday episode with Vivien. Until next time, bye y'all.